Around 7000 BCE, at a burial site in Mohenjo-Daro, part of the ancient Indus Valley civilization in what is now Pakistan, archaeologists uncovered something small, simple, and unexpectedly significant. A curved shell disc with a single drilled hole through its center. It looked, unmistakably, like a button. But here is the strange part of this story. For thousands of years afterward, objects like this weren't actually used to fasten clothing at all. Similar shell, bone, and stone discs, discovered at sites dating back to 4000 and 5000 BCE, were arranged in intricate geometric patterns as decoration, sewn onto garments purely for visual beauty and status, not function. Early humans, it turns out, invented the button-shaped object thousands of years before anyone thought to actually button anything with it. It's a genuinely strange twist in this history. The object existed, the hole existed, and yet the simple act of pairing a button with a buttonhole to actually close a piece of clothing wouldn't be figured out for thousands of years still to come. By around 1000 BCE, during China's Zhou dynasty, a genuinely different approach to fastening clothing had already taken shape. The knot and loop button, formed by tying fabric or cord into a small, tight knot that could pass through a corresponding fabric loop. This design didn't rely on a separate manufactured object at all, but rather clever knotting techniques woven directly into the garment itself. Meanwhile, decorative button-like ornaments continued spreading across the ancient world, prized primarily as status symbols rather than practical fasteners. The ancient Romans, ever practical about clothing, are recorded using button-like fasteners to help hold certain garments in place, representing one of the earliest documented uses of something resembling functional buttoning in the ancient Mediterranean world. Across every one of these ancient civilizations, though, one detail remained strikingly consistent. Buttons, however they were shaped or used, remained closely tied to wealth, status, and craftsmanship, made from precious materials that placed them firmly out of reach for ordinary people going about their daily lives. The true turning point for the button arrived during the Crusades in the late 11th century, when the Chinese knot and loop button style, along with countless other innovations traveling the Silk Road, finally reached Europe through Mediterranean trade routes. European tailors quickly recognized something remarkable about this design. Paired with a properly cut buttonhole, a button could create fitted, close-cut clothing in a way that had never really been possible before. This single innovation quietly transformed European fashion. Garments could now hug the body closely along the arms, chest, and torso, rather than hanging loose and requiring belts, pins, or brooches to hold everything roughly in place. Medieval tailors began cutting the very first true buttonholes, and buttons rapidly evolved from a rare decorative accent into a genuinely functional, indispensable piece of clothing construction. As demand grew across European courts and wealthy households, buttons became valuable trade goods in their own right, crafted from ivory, precious metals, and gemstones, exchanged and traded much like any other valuable commodity moving through medieval Europe's expanding markets. Through the following centuries, buttons became one of Europe's clearest visual markers of wealth and status. By the Victorian era, buttons crafted from precious metals, mother of pearl, and even jet had become genuine fashion statements in their own right, with entire specialized guilds of button makers dedicated solely to crafting increasingly elaborate designs for the wealthy elite. But buttons for ordinary people remained a far more modest affair throughout most of this period, typically crafted from cheaper materials like horn, wood, or bone. The dramatic shift toward genuinely widespread, affordable buttons came with early industrialization, as manufacturers began developing more efficient production methods capable of turning out buttons at a scale handcrafting could never realistically match. By the 19th century, buttons had firmly split into two distinct worlds existing side by side: elaborate, expensive designs, still signaling wealth and status among the upper classes, and simple, mass-manufactured versions steadily becoming standard on the clothing of ordinary working people across Europe and America. The 20th century brought genuine mass production to the button industry, with the introduction of inexpensive plastics, allowing manufacturers to produce buttons by the billions at a fraction of previous costs. What had once been a carefully crafted symbol of wealth, requiring skilled artisans and precious materials, had become something manufactured instantly, in nearly unlimited quantities, on nearly every garment produced anywhere in the world. This shift carried real practical weight beyond simple cost savings. Standardized plastic buttons could now be manufactured to exact consistent sizes, making fitted clothing production dramatically faster and more reliable at an industrial scale that ancient Indus Valley craftspeople, medieval tailors, or even Victorian button makers could scarcely have imagined possible. Today, buttons remain quietly woven into nearly every piece of clothing we own, so completely ordinary that most people fasten dozens of them daily without a single thought about their origin. Modern fashion has largely moved towards zippers, snaps, and Velcro for everyday convenience, yet buttons persist stubbornly on dress shirts, coats, and formal wear, carrying a subtle sense of craftsmanship and tradition that faster fasteners have never quite managed to replace. From a decorative shell disc buried at Mohenjo-daro thousands of years before anyone thought to actually fasten anything with it, to a knot-and-loop design carried along the Silk Road, to the small plastic disc currently holding your shirt closed right now, the button has always carried the same quiet, understated purpose across every era it's touched. A small, unremarkable object holding countless pieces of human history together, quite literally, one fastened garment at a time.